Ever since the release of Topaz, characters are going to start to become very niche. I mean, it's pretty apparent with the kit of Topaz and how her light cone functions. Voyaverse is trying their best to steal your precious, almost at Primo Gem, Stellar Jades. But I'm doing my best here to make sure that they don't touch your supply, and instead, you use your precious Stellar Jades on the characters you should use and get to progress your account. Let's hop into the playstyles video. So we're going to go over all the damage paths in Honkai Star Rail, and these are going to be the paths in which you choose the characters from in order to build your team around these specific paths. First of all, we have the destruction path, which is centered around characters that literally don't give a damn how the game works. These characters don't care, they ignore the mechanics, and they just do raw damage. These are the characters that take their big hands and just slam it on the table and just says, take this shit. And that's what the enemies do. They take the big, giant damage from these monsters. Every single one of these characters here hit extremely hard, and they're really nice in many, many situations. They're very versatile, so you can bring them pretty much anywhere, and they get the job done. The hunt is going to be the path where you're looking to just fight enemies one by one. Now, Seal is, of course, going to be the exception to the rule, and I don't believe that there will be another character for a very long time that will function like she does. But for the most part, she is also single target damage. All of her damage hits one enemy, and when she gets an enemy killed, she resets her turn. But just like Topaz and Numbi functions as a solo damage dealer in which they hit single target, every other character here does the same thing as well. This is the path in which you would like to see a giant number thrown on your screen for hitting that enemy with your elemental skill or your ultimate. Next up, we have the path of erudition. This is the path in which you're looking to mostly get characters that are very good in farming. These are the best characters for farming various contents in the game, but these are also really nice for just playing events in the simulated universe. These characters are really, really strong when it comes to fighting multiple mobs. They're really good against the swarm enemies, right? The swarm disaster enemies. QQ especially with the path of propagation from the swarm disaster. And Jing is really, really good in the simulated universe. All these characters here have some value in the game. Despite what you might hear all the time about the path of erudition being bad, these characters are actually pretty viable. And going forward, we're going to get characters like Argenti that is going to make this path stand out because he's going to hit the enemies with his giant, big, meaty. Next up, we have the path of nihility. Now, this is going to be the most interesting path going forward because for the most part, all of the characters here deal damage with their debuffs that they throw on the enemy. Now, some of them do have very high multipliers like Silverwolf, for example, and Well has pretty solid multipliers, especially if you put him against a single enemy, because his elemental skill hits multiple times, dealing so much damage to that single target. Now, Silverwolf is a character that has a lot of debuffs that are very valuable for various teams and various allies, but she's really good with her base damage. Her multipliers are really, really good. You can build her as a damage dealer, and if you actually invest into Eidolons for the character, she becomes your main DPS. It's insane. And then Kafka is really good as a AoE damage dealer when it comes to dots, and she helps detonated dots all these other characters do. She's a very nice support for Sampo, very nice support for Luca, and a very nice ally for Guinai Fen. But me personally, I'm going to continue investing into the hunt because I just like the way these characters feel. Seal is the first character I ever rolled from a limited banner, and she is my favorite character when it comes to limited banner characters. She's very fun to play, she's very rewarding, and she has a risk-reward factor built into her kit that I really thoroughly enjoy. Everything about this character is really, really enjoyable. But you may not enjoy the hunt path. So we're going to talk about all the paths here, and we'll figure out exactly what path you should invest in when it comes to building your account going forward. Now, most, if not all, of the hunt characters function in hypercarry teams specifically, and this is going to be their best team. Now, this is the best composition in Honkai Star Rail at this point, and has been ever since day one, hypercarry, but for hunt characters especially, this is where they shine. You have characters like Bronya giving many buffs to your single target damage dealer, and you have Sorrowwolf or another Harmony character providing debuffs or buffs furthermore in order to increase the damage output of your damage carry. And then you have your sustain or your defensive option here to make sure that the team stays relatively healthy. And this is a very functioning and very solid team. And going forward, this team is going to become even better when you get upgrades towards comps for Seal specifically. Now, ever since the release of Topaz, we've had very interesting compositions. First of all, this is a dual DPS comp, but you can replace Himiko and put any other damage dealer like Jing, for instance, that has a follow-up attack. Now, Topaz is a character that can be played as a elation character. You play her with other characters that have follow-up attacks, or you can play her as a hyper carry damage dealer in the form of a hunt DPS. So you can play her just like you play Seal, or you can play her as her other way of being intended to be played. And that is with other characters like Jing, Clara, and other characters that have follow-up attacks in her kit. And she will have a lot of value going forward if you want to play with the follow-up playstyle. One of the best things about single target damage dealers though is that they benefit the most from break effect. And the reason being is because they deal so much damage to the enemy's toughness. They are also the damage dealers that are going to be doing the most damage in the team composition, and the ones that are going to be hitting that enemy the most anyways. So therefore, these characters are the ones that are going to be most of the time breaking the enemy. If you use Silverwolf in the same team party with characters like Su Sheng, you're going to break the enemy's toughness constantly, because you're going to have the elemental advantage, and that enemy is going to take multiple hits not only from you, but from your Silverwolf as well, and other characters that also contribute towards breaking the toughness of that enemy. But funny enough, you don't have to build a team around your hunt damage dealer. You can put them with other damage dealers, assuming that that other damage dealer is also not going to take up as many of the resources from the team. So that means you can use a team with Seal and QQ, just make sure that your QQ has some Eidolons and that she's not super fast. Because if she is, then she's going to take most of the skill points from your Seal, and therefore your Seal is not going to be able to shine in a team comp with another DPS. She works especially good Seal in this case with Clara, who is a damage dealer that is self-sufficient and doesn't take any of the skill points from the team. So if you like to play with single target damage dealers and you like big numbers, then this is the path for you. As we go forward, characters in this path may end up functioning like Topaz, where they have very interesting kits. That's only because Hoyoverse wants to sell you their light cones and make it to where these characters are distinguishable from other characters in that path. That's not such a bad thing, because that just makes for more variety and different playstyles altogether. So that means going forward, be a little careful when it comes to rolling for the light cones of the path of the hunt, because all these light cones now are going to be really niche. I mean, take for instance Topaz's 5-star light cone that increases her crit rate, which isn't bad because it's very valuable in every single hunt damage dealer, but the follow-up attack is only useful for this character. And then the crit damage increase is good for every ally in the team. You can maybe try to turn your Seal into a support DPS kind of character, but you're getting more value if you just put her with a different light cone altogether. And then vice versa, Seal's light cone not being that good on Topaz because Topaz is a character that deals most of her damage in follow-up attack. And considering that Topaz does not do damage with her ultimate, she's not going to get any value with this light cone when it comes to the crit damage of the ultimate portion of it. So that means be careful when it comes to rolling for light cones going forward for hunt characters specifically. Now this is going to be the most versatile and most interesting path going forward, and that is going to be nihility. Characters like Kafka has gotten value every time a character gets released that deals dots in their kit. Those characters work really well with Kafka because Kafka can detonate the dots that those allies put onto the enemies. And Kafka is a character that works really well as a solo DPS. So that's what I mean by nihility characters are very versatile. You don't have to use them with other damage dealers. Instead, you can use them in hypercarry teams and they function relatively well. Kafka, though, being the main offender of that. So this is one of my favorite teams. I love using Kafka with Guinai Fen because Guinai Fen puts dots into the enemy and she helps increase the damage of Kafka greatly because she makes the enemies take more damage in AoE, and Kafka loves that AoE because she's able to hit the enemy hard with her ultimate. Now, going forward, this path is going to benefit greatly from having a sustain or a defensive option that is able to provide energy to the team. So if Huo Huo ends up doing that, then you're probably going to want to roll for that character if you want to invest for the nihility path going forward. Huo Huo is probably going to be a must pull if you like this path. And then Asta is really good. Now, this character probably will be overshadowed going forward because I do believe that since she is given to us for free, there will be a better option in the future that does everything Asta does but better, providing more buffs to the team, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but just taking into consideration that that character would be a much better pickup for Asta, greatly improving this team overall. And that's not such a bad thing because Asta provides speed and attack, which means if that other character also provides speed and attack, you can put them in the same team, and then all of a sudden you have this nihility debuffing team that just goes super fast in the turn order and does so much damage with all the buffs that these two Harmony characters provide. But what I like especially is that Kafka works really well with any damage dealer that puts dots on the enemy. So that means whatever the element the enemy is weak to, you're going to want to bring one of those characters that is matching the element of that enemy. Now, furthermore, I'm going to be honest with you all, the nihility is the most free-to-play friendly path. And that is because all these characters do not, Serval is a little different, but all the characters here do not really need to be built with crit. Instead, you want to give them a lot of attack in order to increase the damage output of their dots and give them a lot of speed so that they can take many turns. And then once you have those stats down, you can then focus on building other characters up the path, greatly reducing the resources you need to get your characters going. So this is one of the best paths if you are someone that does not like farming relics. And coincidentally, I forgot to mention, characters like Seal are the hardest characters to build in the game. These characters are very, very stat hungry. They require so many resources. And considering all of these are 4-star options, that makes this even better because two of these characters you actually get for free. You could have got Luca from this patch for free, and Serval the game gives you in the beginning of the game. And then Sampo is a character that you will get at some point because he is relatively easy to obtain from limited banners, the standard banner, or your newbie banner. And Gwen Ifena is out right now. She's on Topaz banner, so if you don't have this character, get her. She's so freaking good, and she gets better with Eidolons. I really like using Gwen Ifena. Now, Silverwolf, like all of the other nihility characters, is also very versatile. You can use her with dot damage dealers, and she will increase the damage output of their dots greatly because dot damage dealers benefit from having the enemy's defense lowered because dots in this game do not ignore the enemy's defense or does a portion of the enemy's HP unless it's bleed, which is the physical dot. That one works a little differently. So therefore, Silverwolf greatly increases the damage output of dots because she lowers the resistances of that enemy, and she increases the damage the enemy takes because she lowers their defenses, all of which benefits dot damage in general. And because of how the weakness break system works in this game, Silverwolf helps giving that enemy a weakness that the enemy didn't already have. So therefore, if you're using Havka or Sampo and you break the enemy's weakness, you're going to put that wind or lightning down on enemy, which does massive damage if you have break effect on your characters. And therefore, that means you're going to increase the damage output of your dot teams because that enemy didn't have the element that the enemy didn't have before because Silverwolf applied it to them. And funny enough, every character in the game for the most part, no matter what path they're in, can be played as a hypercarry. So Kafka is no exception to that. I like using hypercarry Kafka team compositions with Ting Yun and Pela because these two characters increase her damage output greatly. Pela is able to mass AoE defense shred, which means the AoE Kafka puts onto the field is going to decimate the enemies. And then Ting Yun gives the much needed energy towards Kafka getting her ult, which benefits from having Pela furthermore. And then Ting Yun also gives Kafka more lightning damage because of the planetary rendezvous effect for Harmony characters. So this team is really good for hypercarry Kafka. And then the sustain or defensive option can be any character on your account. These characters are very versatile, but they don't do damage, so I didn't talk about them in this video. So if you're a fan of Seal like I am and you want this character to shine, then Mono Quantum is going to be her best team going forward. So once we do receive a Quantum Harmony character, you definitely want to pick them up because this team is going to absolutely explode when it comes to damage output. This path has made Honkai Star Rail turn from a game that was very go happy, go lucky into a game that is very depressing because every day I wake up, I'm reminded of how fucking overpowered this character is. And every time I play Memories of Chaos, I have to use this character because he just makes everything so easy. The Path of Destruction makes the game so easy. They trivialize all of the game's contents because of their damage output and their super versatility when it comes to being damage dealers. This is the path if you want to turn your brain off, definitely get these characters because they will absolutely make the game a breeze, which isn't a bad thing if you're someone who likes casual gameplay anyways. Definitely invest in this path. Now, the best teams for destruction characters is always going to be hypercarry, and that's just because of the nature of Honkai Star Rail. You buff up a damage dealer, you put all of your resources into the damage dealer, and the damage dealer deals incredible damage. That's just how this game works. But you can use these characters in many situations. I just prefer to use every destruction character I have in hypercarry teams because they just, again, they do so much damage, so why not give them even more damage? But some destruction characters are just extremely flexible. Every character except for Danheng, Gabuto, and I, for the most part, can be played in teams with other damage dealers, Clara being one of those characters. This was a team combo I actually used to use back in the day because it was actually really fun. It's very safe and very reliable because Clara and Fu Xuan are two characters that makes it to where they take away the aggro value from your damage dealer, in this case Seal. And Bronya has a high aggro value as well, so your Seal will most likely never get hit. And if it's AoE anyways, Fu Xuan makes sure that the damage is mitigated anyways. But this is a very nice and very safe team. So if you're looking for something that is very auto-friendly, then definitely go for a team like this because it will yield nice results. But characters like Blade is really good also in the places of Clara. Now I like to compare these two characters because they both act as sub DPS. They don't burn any skill points. Now Clara does generate skill points, but Blade doesn't generate skill points, he just doesn't burn any either, so he remains a skill point neutral character. But that isn't such a bad thing, because if you use him with another damage dealer anyways, that is very good for the damage dealer because it helps with the skill point economy. Now these things will change once we do receive a character that helps with giving skill points to the team, but as of right now, these characters help with that economy, which is very, very valuable because that is where most of your damage comes from anyways. And then very recently, Jing Lu. This is a character that I'm just still scratching my head as to why is she the best damage dealer in the game. She gives so much crit rate in her kit, meaning you can go around 50 or lower percent crit rate and have up to 100% from just this character having her kit alone. She does so much damage, she pushes her own action forward, and she can freeze the enemy whenever she breaks that enemy's toughness bar. She provides so much value and does AoE damage too, and she looks so fucking good too. Who doesn't love her silver hair with the blindfold? It reminds me of 2B. And I'm just surprised as to how they can continue to make characters like this. Because with her extreme versatility and how good she is as a solo performing damage dealer, I just wonder how they're going to top it all off in this path going forward. And then you have Arlen, which isn't a bad character because Jing Lu actually made him a lot better in teams with Jing Lu. I mean, he can be a sub DPS. He doesn't take any skill points, doesn't use any, just like the other destruction characters. But he is also really good with characters like Jeopard because Jeopard gives him the much needed shield he needs in order to stay alive and remain being low HP to deal his max damage threshold. He's a character that gets better the more investment you give him, but he is a 4-star after all. You can't expect him to be that good. And then Pitch Dark Hook the Great. This is a character that makes the destruction path look kind of mid, but I'm not saying Pitch Dark Hook the Great is a bad character. I'm just saying all of the other characters in the path of destruction are just blatantly overpowered. So yeah, if you want a path that just helps you with playing the game, and if you're a new player, I definitely kind of recommend this path, especially with Jing Lu. If this was a character you end up picking up as a new player, then you can just go for another damage dealer and not have to worry about anything else. And if you have Jing Lu and both Blade, then this game becomes a breeze for you because these two characters are just so freaking strong with and without each other. Now we have the path of disappointment. I'm kidding, the path of erudition. Now, we did talk about this path and the destruction path in a previous video. It's a great watch. I suggest you go and check it out if you want to know more about that path and this path in general and how they function in the game. But all you need to know is that currently the destruction path overshadows the path of erudition. I'm sure that things will balance out on its own. It's just that as of right now, the game doesn't really favor characters like Himiko. But these characters are extremely strong when the situation does call for them, because they hit all the enemies on the field and they provide massive damage with their ultimates. Their ultimates are very good because they have very nice multipliers and hits every enemy on the field. So you can just multiply that damage by every enemy that's on the field, and that's going to be a massive amount of damage. Now, characters like Argenti definitely will make this path a lot better, and I assume after Jing and all of the tweaks he's received in the form of pseudo buffs, you're going to really like the path of erudition. Now, characters like Himiko are still really good when the enemy is weak to fire, and fast forward, Himiko is really good with a character called Topaz, which helps this character perform as a follow attacking character, which you wouldn't think you would use Himiko like that, but she works really well with Topaz. Now, funny enough, you can use the erudition characters as hyper carry damage dealers, even though it may not be as optimal as using the destruction path instead as a hyper carry damage dealer, but it's okay, because these characters still provide a lot of damage output with the buffers and the supports in the team composition with them. Asta being really good with Himiko, and Bronya giving Himiko the action forward she needs and the extra damage output. QQ providing a very fun and very enjoyable playstyle. She has a playstyle that is different from every other character in the game. The closest thing we can think of is Zenheng of Bibitu, but that character is in his own tier of just being a different playstyle altogether. QQ is a very fun one at that because she is RNG if it was a character in this game. If you're playing this character on a bad day, you're not going to have a fun time. If you're playing this character on a good day, all of a sudden you just love Honkai Star Rail and it's your favorite game of all time. Jing. This character has definitely got a lot better in recent times. He was never a bad character, but there was definitely other AoE damage dealers that overshadowed him. But as time went on and new characters released, he's gotten a lot better. Now the thing is, if this is one of the characters you enjoy, well, you're definitely going to want to swipe a couple times because the characters that they provide to make this character better are definitely things that can get a little expensive, especially if we're talking about Topaz or for Eidolon 1 and her first light cone, best in slot that is. But Jing is a very solid AoE damage dealer of the lightning element, even if you don't have some of those premium options in order to help him. He is a very nice damage dealer, and he is what the erudition should be. Characters going forward should function like Jing because he is very good at what he does. Now, Herta is a very fun character, I will say that. Herta is one of the most fun characters, probably the most fun character to use in Simulated Universe. When that enemy is weak to ice, and there's 5 enemies, this character all of a sudden becomes a one-man army. She spins to win, freezes all the enemies, does so much damage, and she just annihilates everyone on the field. She's a 4-star you get for free, so that's one of the best things, and you get eidolons as you progress through the Simulated Universe. So if you are looking for a nice damage dealer to use in the Simulated Universe, you definitely want to invest into Herta because she is one of the most fun and most rewarding characters for that game mode. In Serval, Serval might be one of the most pretty looking characters in the game, but unfortunately she's just been overshadowed by characters like Jing, who does what she does but better in the same path. Now that's going to happen with all damage dealers going forward that are 4 stars, just 5-star counterparts are just going to perform better than them, and it is what it is. This is a game that is just centered around doing damage at the end of the day, so you're going to have scenarios like this pop up much more often. But that's okay, because she is a character you get for free, so no one's going to complain anyways. So this is the path right now that is seeming like is going to be the late bloomer, and there's nothing wrong with that. As we get more characters in the erudition path, and as the game does progress in a state in which favors characters of this path, then you're going to see characters like QQ perform a lot better. It's just unfortunately right now, this path may not be the best path, but things will change going forward. You got to trust me on this one. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and it was honestly a fun video to make. I really wanted to make this video for a very long time, and I was waiting for a character like Topaz to pop up so that we can get a clear understanding of how the paths are going to work going forward. Now, will they make more supports like Topaz for the path of Hunt? I don't think so. I just think right now it's a little weird in how they're designing characters. They obviously want to sell you characters, so they're going to make them a little different than how they function, or maybe a lot different if you're looking at how she is relative to a character like Seal. But that's okay, because that adds for more variety in the game, and it adds for a more fun experience overall, because characters aren't like characters that were released literally 3 weeks ago, right? That's going to be the video here. My path and what I'm going to go for going forward in the future, I'm obviously going to prioritize support characters because I like a more versatile, account overall, and I just like support characters and how they function in general. I believe that they do provide the most value in your account, and they help with doing anything you want. I mean, they are designing the team comps after all. And when it comes to damage dealers specifically, I'm going to focus on the path of the Hunt, but mono quantum specifically, because I just like that composition and how it plays in Honkai Star Rail. It is my favorite comp as of right now, and I don't see that changing for a very long time. So that means whenever we do receive that Quantum Harmony character, I say this in every single video, that is going to be the best time to be a Quantum main. I just cannot wait for that character. That's going to be the video here. Whatever path you should go for, definitely invest in that path. You can mix and match if you want, but do understand that characters are going to become a lot more niche. So that means if you don't have some of these options, like for instance, if you're investing in Jing and you don't have Topaz with Eidolon 1 and her Lycoon, you're definitely best off for just going for a Harmony character, providing value to Jing instead of going for another damage dealer to where you have to get relics, you have to invest in their traces, give them a Lycoon, level that up, and use a ton of resources, right? That's just how I see it. But you can do whatever you want, of course, and definitely go for the characters that appease the most to you in terms of how they look, because that's pretty much what matters the most. You definitely want to have the most fun you want to have in a game like this that can get very stale at times. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Peace.